So listen up, guys. Some time ago, I had a problem with my leg. I had been running for about 8 years and ended up injuring my leg a bit. So I started looking for a rehabilitation specialist. Not right away, I waited about 3 months to see if it would get better on its own, but nothing changed. So I looked for a rehabilitation specialist. I found a good center in Radanovici, which is where I am now. The people here are wonderful. And basically, after a few weeks of visits, things got much better. I call this place a rehabilitation center, although maybe that's not exactly the right term. We're about to talk with a young man, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong about anything. The center is located in Radanovici. It's quite a convenient place for those who live in Budva, Kotor, or Tivat. Roughly speaking, just visually estimating, I might be off by a little give or take, but from each of these cities to the center, it's about a 20-minute drive. If you live in Podgorica, Herceg Novi or Bar, of course it takes a bit longer, but still I chose this center. Even though in my own city I live in Herceg Novi, there is a fairly well-known institute, the Sila Milosevic Institute, or as people commonly call it, the Igle Institute. But I decided to go to Radanovici anyway. The center is Russian-speaking. Everyone here speaks Russian. Well, besides Russian, I've heard people speak in Serbian and English as well. So the clients aren't just Russian. And now, actually, let's move on to the conversation with the young man, which is, in fact, the reason I came here. To start with, I might get it wrong, so I'll ask you to say the correct name of your center, because for me, the English name is quite difficult.
The official name of our center is currently Mosaic of Health, which translates as Mosaic of Health. Where does the name come from? It comes from the so-called kinesiological concept known as the triangle of health or the triad of health, which includes 3 components. The first is structure, meaning muscles and ligaments. The second is organs, and the third is psychosomatics. Well, by organs I mean rather their enzymatic function. Well, that is biochemistry. That's it. In fact, there is a certain interconnection between these 3 components, which kinesiology tries to address in its treatment method.
You promote a treatment based on so-called applied kinesiology. What exactly is it? And basically, how is it different, for example, from manual therapy? Is this considered traditional or alternative medicine, or is it still not entirely clear what it is?
At the moment, kinesiology is not considered traditional medicine. In fact, it's hard to even call it medicine right now. It's more of an approach, a certain approach to improving the body's health. Probably the closest thing you could call it is a therapeutic method, something like what used to be called therapeutic physical culture. That's regarding kinesiotherapy, the approach to treatment. And kinesiology is a method of testing. That is, it's a special manual muscle testing technique that determines your muscle reflexes, meaning it assesses the condition where your muscles are weak, or, for example, for what reason, and first and foremost, it identifies the root cause of this muscle weakness. Each muscle is associated with a specific organ and is also connected to a certain vertebra, depending on which nerve innervates it, and so on. So the dysfunction of this muscle is determined through testing, and then an individualized program is created for you to restore it. Basically,
I want to add to your answer, because you're speaking a bit in scientific terms. So, I want to say, like I mentioned earlier today, that I was treating my leg. So, how does it actually work? You come in, and on the first day, a specialist examines you and creates an individualized program for you. On the second day, the procedures begin. They include several stages, so to speak. The first stage is something I would probably call a warm-up. The second stage is when you go to a specially equipped gym, by the way, it's very well equipped. There are various exercise machines. Many of them, by the way, I saw for the first time in my life, even though I've been going to the gym my whole life. And basically, there you follow a specific program and do certain exercises. The goal there isn't to lift as much weight as possible, in fact. The weights are very light, very gentle. So the aim, as I understand it, is specifically to work certain muscle groups. Then you go to the next room where you get a massage and do some stretching, in other words, everything that's generally needed for various musculoskeletal injuries. And overall, you go there. Well, at least I went every day. I don't know, maybe there are some procedures that are less frequent. Maybe you can go less often. I guess that's decided individually. But overall, the program really does work.
Yes, as for how things are done specifically at our center, the training is actually structured like this. You always start with breathing exercises. You breathe using a special technique with a weight placed on your abdominal area, stretching, so to speak, the diaphragmatic sac. And depending on your individual needs and conditions, you place the weight on certain points in a specific sequence. This may be related to which of your muscles or muscle groups are weakened and which organs they are associated with. Accordingly, you activate and stimulate that organ. Then you proceed and work through it using a special technique on our exercise machines. Yes, you mentioned that you saw them for the first time. That's true, because the machines are unique. There's nothing like them anywhere else in the world except in our centers. That's because they are the personal invention of our founder Vadim Hitago. The weights are actually quite light because for the most part you're not working with gross motor skills or large muscle groups. You're not trying to build bulk, so it's not about aesthetics here. You're working with deep muscle chains, and those muscles are small and delicate, so to speak. The goal is to start feeling them and to activate their normal natural function. That's it. After the workout, you go back down to our relaxation room. There you'll do some stretching and, if needed, get a massage as well. Everything wraps up with a breathing practice again, but this time following a slightly different pattern.
Am I understanding correctly? Kinesiology is basically not a treatment method, but a diagnostic method.
Yes. Yes, that's right. If we delve into the terminology, then yes, kinesiology is a method of testing, specifically manual muscle testing, so to speak. It checks the muscle reflex. So, for example, if you've ever been to a neurologist or neuropathologist who tapped your knee with a hammer, in this way he tested the short-term muscle stretch reflex. That's it. If we explain it on a basic level, a kinesiologist tests using the same method. After that, it's no longer kinesiology, but kinesiotherapy that comes into play. That's already a treatment method. He is active. That is, it involves working on special exercise machines, special exercises, and a passive form when the instructor performs the movements for you. Well, for example, some passive active stretches where someone helps you. You've already experienced this yourself, for instance, like rocking your knees from side to side to relax your lower back, or massage.
Deem, for what illnesses can this medical method help?
In fact for almost any. Well, or at least almost any.
Are we talking about injuries, or do you mean, for example, you don't treat colds, do you?
We treat colds. We also work with lymphatic system, so to speak. There are exercises that open up your lymphatic collectors in a certain sequence, which triggers an accelerated process of lymph circulation. This in turn promotes fast recovery and strengthens the immune system.
All right, immunity and all that, but people don't come to you with colds. So, who actually comes to you, and with what issues do you really help?
With colds, of course, someone with a cold specifically wouldn't come to us with that request at first, but our regular clients have already noticed a certain pattern. If they start to get sick and come to the center right away, they recover much faster. So it's enough to do certain exercises for a day or two, and basically you don't end up getting deeply sick. Of course, most often people come in with pain. That means you have muscle pain. You come in, say, with lower back or neck pain, and then we do some testing to identify the cause of that pain. The duration of treatment depends precisely on the root cause of the pain. So, if it's just some superficial issue, it might be enough to go through a single cycle of 12 sessions to simply get rid of the pain. The muscles start to perform their function. For example, if it was just a spasm or some kind of overload, that issue can be resolved quickly. If it is related to the pathology of an organ with which this muscle is associated, then the treatment will take somewhat longer. And in this case, you need to complete at least a course consisting of 3 cycles of 12 sessions each. If this problem is already connected to something like psychosomatics, to some deep emotional processes, for example, if at some point in the past you experienced some things I mentioned earlier, there is a certain interconnection between emotions, organs, and muscles, then let's say you experienced a strong emotion and your diaphragm went into spasm, the diaphragm tightens and you start to feel pain in your back. Organs are also attached to the diaphragm, for example, the intestinism, the enzymatic function of the intestines becomes disrupted, and as a result, you end up with a whole cycle of problems. You come in seemingly just thinking, oh, my lower back hurts, but in reality, there's actually a much deeper process going on, and to resolve it, you need a comprehensive approach that addresses all 3 of these components.
What kinds of problems do people usually come in with most often? I guess the typical ones are neck pain, back pain, things like that.
It's actually hard to pinpoint the single most common problem, but I can list a few. For example, athletes come in with various injuries and strains. Athletes generally share a similar trait: they recover quickly because their bodies are active, all their fluids circulate efficiently, and so they tend to heal quite fast. Often people come in who are planning to have certain surgeries, for example, joint replacements. And it's believed that if you prepare the body in a certain way before surgery, it helps as well. You do exercises too, and after the surgery, in that case, the body recovers faster and the joint starts functioning more quickly. And there have often been cases where people came in prepared for surgery and after completing the course, they didn't even need the surgery. They returned to their normal functionality.
Dima, there are so many different centers, people who work from home and so on, who are involved in rehabilitation to some extent. What makes your center and in particular kinesiology special?
I think that first and foremost, the advantage our center has over other private specialists is that we have our own gym equipped with machines developed according to our own system. And that's it. As I mentioned earlier about manual therapy, yes, it's possible that even if the persona specialist is truly competent and helps you solve a particular issue, relieves pain, or eases muscle spasms, the problem may soon return because the root cause was not identified. Uh-huh. In our center, we take a comprehensive approach. You not only eliminate the pain, but also work through the underlying cause that led to it. As a result, the outcome is more stable and long lasting.
Tell me briefly about your staff. From what I saw, it looks like you have about 20 people working here. So, who are they? No need to describe each person, but in general, who are they? What qualifications do they have, like diplomas or awards?
At the very least, they all have diplomas and certificates that are legally required for conducting instructional activities. For example, some have graduated from fitness colleges or institutes, some have medical education. That's right. But I should mention that at the moment there isn't really a comprehensive institute specifically for kinesiology. So the team has various types of specialized education in the field of sports, or as I already mentioned, in fitness, but the primary and most important training actually takes place right here at the center itself, at this very facility.
Can everyone be rehabilitated? That is, to restore.
Restored, yes. I tend to believe that everyone can be restored. The human body is fundamentally designed for self-recovery. It's just that sometimes, due to injuries or pathologies, it starts to struggle, sends you signals, and kinesiotherapy helps to correct the body and set it back on the path to self-recovery.
Dima, I've seen patients at your place who speak all sorts of different languages. Often it was English, Serbian, and Russian. So, who are your main clients? Russian speakers, or is it more of a mix?
At first, probably when the center just opened, it was mostly a Russian-speaking audience. But then, as word gradually spread throughout the community, the Montenegrin audience also started coming in more and more. But it should be noted that more and more people started to learn about the center. And at the moment, honestly, it's hard to say, but I think about 70% are Russian speakers together with Montenegrins and 30% are foreigners. Well, maybe 30 is a bit of an exaggeration, but 20% for sure. People from Europe, from Germany, from Switzerland, English-speaking clients. Well, here in Montenegro there are all sorts of foreign projects, and clients come to our center because, in fact, at the moment I don't want to, maybe this will sound overly self-confident or presumptuous, but there are no alternatives. That's why foreign clients come to us.
Let's step away from your center for a moment. How do you generally assess private? Well, let's not talk about public. Public healthcare isn't anything special in any country. So how do you evaluate private medicine in Montenegro? I mean, not just rehabilitation, but in general, overall.
Honestly, to be frank with you, it's hard for me to assess private medicine in Montenegro, because it's been a long time since I've been sick with anything, since I use our own treatment method. So, but according to what I've heard that medicine in Montenegro overall is a bit behind compared to Europe, and it's also much less developed than in Russia or Ukraine, at least compared to the big cities. But apparently there are rumors that some major global investors are planning to turn Montenegro into one of the world's medical centers, and it seems like something is brewing here. They're planning to stir things up.
They're planning a clinic is being built. I don't know if it's just one or maybe several, but of course this project won't be completed today. It's probably going to take several years. And the last question, you have a center, which is where we are right now. I heard that you're opening another center somewhere in Montenegro. Tell us what it is, where it is, how it will differ from this one, and in general, why do you need a second center? After all, you haven't fully exhausted the possibilities here yet.
In Montenegro, yes, there are a number of projects currently underway right now. Actually, we also have centers in Russian Novokuznetsk, Vladikavkaz, and Sochi. And now a center is opening in Moscow as well. It will be positioned as a medical center with doctors working there. And regarding Montenegro, yes, here one center is about to open literally in a couple of weeks. There, the range of services is a bit broader. In addition to what we already have here, the eyes, in addition to kinesiotherapy, we are also adding aromatherapy, and there, that center can probably be called a VIP center to some extent. It will have different pricing. Perhaps not everyone will be able to afford it, so we are also keeping this center for people. I won't say with limited means, but let's say for those who want to achieve results at a different price point. In that center, in addition to everything we already have here, there will also be advanced shockwave therapy, a relaxing sauna, and probably an even more comprehensive and in-depth individual approach tailored specifically to each person.
Even more individual. Here, you already assign a therapist to each patient.
Yes, well, that's because we have such talented instructors who can really create the feeling for the patient that everything is happening absolutely individually. But in reality, at the moment, each instructor works with two patients.
Dima, thank you very much for the conversation. Friends, you saw this center's phone number at the beginning of the video. I'll also leave it in the video description. If anyone happens to need it, call the reception, schedule an appointment, and basically just come by. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.